I wanna be a billionaire so fucking bad. Buy all of the things I never had. I wanna be on the cover.
It's the same story every year, really, quite frankly. You know, people, the rich have got an awful lot richer, and since 2009, I think the top 1,000 people's wealth has doubled.
It's a cod.
The Dulwich College I went to in 1974 was a school that was affordable, and schools like Dulwich College now are really there for the super rich.
When we say we're all in this together, it is not a cry for help, it is a call to arms.
That is the formula. Wealth creation for a moral purpose.
Well, Rory, let's maybe start with you. Were you relaxed about the super rich getting even richer?
Like Mandelson, who's going to say, I'm intensely relaxed about people being filthy rich as long as they pay their taxes, Tom. And that's the point. No, I think about this. I mean, I think that, never mind the Chilcot report, I think that Cameron would quite like the Sunday Times rich list to have been suppressed until after the election, because obviously the evidence is there that the rich are getting phenomenally richer, and not just that, but I mean, this is one of the unique achievements of the coalition. It's not like you bang on about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. We've managed to do both. We've managed to make the rich richer and the poor poorer, and that's the point. That's why this matters.
But do we have to just accept that we live in a capitalist society, and in a capitalist society, sometimes people who are already rich manage to make themselves even richer, and there's nothing we can do about that?
No, because this recession was caused by the apex of the capitalist society, and until that reckoning is got over, I think people realise that the hole in the economy, it wasn't a Labour-led recession. This was a hole, it was an £850 billion hole in the economy at the top end, and so if people see the top end getting richer and richer, they want something done about it.
But don't we also have to look to ourselves a bit? You know, the way we sort of slaver over those lists, you kind of look at it and then you feel a little bit dirty afterwards, because actually there's something about it that's really quite vile. And I think the most interesting thing for me about the Sunday Times rich list would be that Len Blavatnik, you know, gave 75 million to Oxford University, or that, you know, the top 10 of the Sunday Times rich list don't feature in the top 10 of the list of the great philanthropists in this country in the Just Giving list that's just been released. So actually we're kind of just celebrating wealth purely for the sake of it, and that seems to me a kind of ludicrous state to get ourselves into, and it also contributes to this whole sense of a kind of politics of envy. You know, I believe that we should tax property more. I don't think that people should live in multi-billion-pound homes and not pay their fair share of tax, but I don't think we should call it the mansion tax, because I think it's divisive, and I think it creates a sense of us and them. And I think the way to eradicate the kind of ridiculous chasm between the super rich and people who are really struggling is to have a really fair tax system that absolutely works.
Okay, we'll bring Nick in on this a bit. Rachel, how relaxed are you about the super rich getting even richer?
I think Marielle's absolutely right. It's that feeling that there's two sets of rules apply. There's kind of normal people, and then there are the super rich who've got non-dom status, don't pay as much tax as everyone else. And I think what's changed, it's not just the gap between the very rich and the very poor. It's almost the middle, and then this super rich elite. I remember going to interview Bob Diamond when he was head of Barclays, and he talked about looked out from his beautiful office in Canary Wharf, pointing to the townships of Hackney, which is where I live. Just this sense of this kind of the little people who, you know, were the sort of perhaps the doctors, teachers, lawyers who would have felt they'd done quite well in the past, and now completely left behind by this kind of city elite who play by different rules. And I think that's what people feel is unfair.
Nick, what do you...
I think it's basically right. Yeah, I agree with Mariella and you, Rachel. I think...
She agrees.
Well, that's an easy start. You're not going to make it that easy for you.
I think it's right, because look, you can't sort of eliminate wealth. You can't eliminate the wealthy. I mean, what you can do, though, is make sure that people who... And I don't think we should denigrate success. I agree with Mariella. I don't think the politics of envy when people succeed. I don't know, this chap, Blavatnik, is it?
Blavatnik.
I don't know how he's made his squillions. He certainly wasn't responsible for the 2008
We don't really want to go there,
by the way. But I think you want to make sure that however wealthy you are, you play by the rules. That you pay your taxes, you can't squirrel them away, you close the loopholes. Now, look, I can give you we've actually done a whole lot of that, and I know it doesn't feel like it. Actually, as it happens, the richest are paying more in tax over the last several years than they have done for many years. But we need to do a whole lot more. Of course, we need to do a whole lot more.
But why is it such a difficult thing? I am interested in that.
I'll give you an example. Capital gains tax, a classic example of something where the very rich do very very well because they pay much lower tax on their capital gains than they do on their income. So when we came into government, one of the first things we did, we raised capital gains tax by 10%. I would like to see the gap between income tax and what you gain what your tax on your capital gains narrowed further, particularly for the very wealthiest. Dividends could be taxed much more fairly, again more in line with income.
But what is it that's so hard about doing it? Because I know that those are things you'd like to do. We'd love to see you do them as well. But why is it so difficult? I don't understand why things like non-dom status, which is clearly ludicrous, should still exist. Well, and that Labour should have to call it.
Well, let's take that for an example. Actually, the Labour Party is not saying ban non-dom status. If you actually listen behind the headline, they said, well, actually, we should make an exception in the rules for people who come and work here. I don't know, an engineer from a Japanese
they talked about a temporary 3-year thing, which is a wholly different thing from being able to pass it down as an inherited...
Absolutely, no, that's a nonsense. I quite agree with that. The idea that you can inherit non-dom status is a complete nonsense. We've actually, as it happens, significantly increased the levies, the fees that people pay as they enjoy non-dom status. So you can do all of those things, and we need to do more. My only point is, I think that should be the target.
Okay, just on that specifically, after 3 years, you'd have a cut-off. After 10 years, where would your cut-off point be?
I don't think it's an exact science. Where would you put it? I mean...
Well, I'm not in government.
3 weeks.
No, look, you need it in an open economy to be... I don't know, a good example is this, which is not the super rich. Let's say you're an engineer for an Asian car company and you're working in a car plant in the northeast of Britain for a few years, and you rent your flat back in wherever you come from. Of course, I think it's sensible to say that you don't pay British tax on that rental income on the other side of the planet for the period of time which you're here working for the... I mean, that kind of stuff I think most people would accept is normal. What is not normal is that you can inherit, I think it's even, is it through only the male line or something extraordinary?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
It's very British.
It's sexism and it's unfair economically as well.
And it's literally one law for the rich and another... You were saying, it's almost like there is. But I think it's the excess of it. I think there's the levels of it. I mean, I don't know if people realise the multiples of, for example, if you're a CEO of a FTSE 100 company, you think what multiple of their employees' salary they should get as their salary. And I think people might think, was it 30, is it 40? But now it's reached 174 times the average salary. You think at that stage it's grotesque.
Statistics are tricky. Statistics are tricky. I know it doesn't feel it again, but again, the statisticians will tell you that inequality is actually lower now than it has been for a long period of time.
But equally well, the IFS has just been saying that of the measures that you've brought in, they've hit proportionally the poor, people at the bottom end of the income scale, harder than the people at the top.
Well, at the same time, the IFS will confirm to you that the very wealthiest pay more in tax than they have done for many, and have made the biggest, the top 20% have made by far the biggest contribution to deficit reduction to anybody else, as it should be.
In income tax, they're paying more, but if you add in VAT and council tax, in fact, the bottom 10% pay 43% of their income, and the top 10% pay 35% of their income.
Let me give you an example why this is difficult.
So much of their assets are in property and in things like that, where actually they're not touched. People, the super rich don't put money in banks anymore because they're worried about banks the same way the rest of us are.
I don't want to call it a mansion tax, so that's why you need a band in high value level.
Banded,
Rachel, I just want to bring
different in different areas because different parts of the country have completely different property
Hold
values.
on 1 second.
I do think there are very basic things like the non-dom status that the coalition could easily have dealt with and didn't. And there are lots of sort of small things and big things that you can do to send signals as well as actually changing. You're making a moral statement as much as you are changing policy, I think, with some of these.
Do you give people tax breaks, for example, on the basis of the amount of people they employ? I was sitting next to a minor oligarch, and he said it was when they were talking about bringing in the 30,000 annual charge, and it was ridiculous. He was outraged that a man of his stature could be attacked in such a way and have to pay this £30,000 a year. And I said, well, I thought he must own at least a minor football team or something. And I said, well, do you have many employees? And he said, oh, I have many now. Oh, a cook, a housekeeper, a nanny, a driver.
Okay, all right, that's enough about...
What good are you to us?
It is astounding how significantly one idea can shape a society and its policies. Consider this one. If taxes on the rich go up, job creation will go down. This idea is an article of faith for Republicans and seldom challenged by Democrats, and has indeed shaped much of the economic landscape. But sometimes the ideas that we are certain are true are dead wrong. Consider that for thousands of years, humans believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. It's not. And an astronomer who still believed that it was would do some pretty terrible astronomy. Likewise, a policymaker who believes that the rich are job creators and therefore should not be taxed will do equally terrible policy. I have started or helped start dozens of companies and initially hired lots of people. But if there was no one around who could afford to buy what we had to sell, all those companies and all those jobs would have evaporated. That's why I can say with confidence that rich people don't create jobs, nor do businesses large or small. Jobs are a consequence of a circle of life-like feedback loop between customers and businesses. And only consumers can set in motion this virtuous cycle of increasing demand and hiring. In this sense, an ordinary consumer is more of a job creator than a capitalist like me. That's why when business people take credit for creating jobs, it's a little bit like squirrels taking credit for creating evolution. It's actually the other way around. Anyone who's ever run a business knows that hiring more people is a course of last resort for capitalists. It's what we do if and only if rising consumer demand requires it. And in this sense, calling ourselves job creators isn't just inaccurate, it's disingenuous. That's why our existing policies are so upside down. When the biggest tax exemptions and the lowest tax rates benefit the richest, all in the name of job creation, all that happens is that the rich get richer. Since 1980, the share of income for the top 1% of Americans has more than tripled, while our effective tax rates have gone down by 50%. If it was true that lower taxes for the rich and more wealth for the wealthy led to job creation, today we would be drowning in jobs. And thank you. And yet, unemployment and underemployment is at record highs. Another reason that this idea is so wrong-headed is that there can never be enough super rich people to power a great economy. Somebody like me makes hundreds or thousands of times as much as the median American, but I don't buy hundreds or thousands of times as much stuff. My family owns 3 cars, not 3,000. I buy a few pairs of pants and shirts a year like most American men. Occasionally we go out to eat with friends. I can't buy enough of anything to make up for the fact that millions of unemployed and underemployed Americans can't buy any new cars, any clothes, or enjoy any meals out. Nor can I make up for the falling consumption of the vast majority of middle-class families that are barely squeaking by, buried by spiraling costs and trapped by stagnant or declining wages. Here's an incredible fact, that if the typical American family still retained the same share of income that they did in 1970, they'd earn like $45,000 more a year. Imagine what our economy would be like if that were the case. Significant privileges have come to people like me, capitalists, for being perceived as job creators at the center of the economic universe, and the language and metaphors we use to defend the current economic and social arrangements is telling. It's a small jump from job creator to the creator. This language obviously wasn't, this language was not chosen by accident. And it's only honest to admit that when somebody like me calls themselves a job creator, we're not just describing how the economy works, but more particularly, we're making a claim on status and privileges that we deserve. Speaking of special privileges, the extraordinary differential between the 15% tax rate that capitalists pay on carried interest, dividends, and capital gains, and the 35% top marginal rate on work that ordinary Americans pay, is kind of hard to justify without a touch of deification. We've had it backwards for the last 30 years. Rich people like me don't create jobs. Jobs are a consequence of an ecosystemic feedback loop between customers and businesses. And when the middle class thrives, businesses grow and hire, and owners profit. That's why taxing the rich to pay for investments that benefit all is such a fantastic deal for the middle class and the rich. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's an idea worth spreading. In a capitalist economy, the true job creators are middle-class consumers, and taxing the rich to make investments that make the middle class grow and thrive is the single shrewdest thing we can do for the middle class, for the poor, and for the rich.
I swear